It's the Sittin Sportside podcast, exclusively on 1045theteam.com.
And welcome into the Sittin Sportside podcast. Yet another division preview, and by yet another division preview, I mean the final one. It's the National League Central preview, brought to you by D'Andrea's Pizza, right here on Sittin Sportside podcast. Find out more about D'Andrea's Pizza on www.d'andreaspizza.com. So, we are going to be doing a preview on the Cubs, Cardinals, Reds, Pirates, that division. You all know about it. It's the National League Central. Cubs won this division last season. Well, no, actually, no. Sorry. The Cubs were in the lead of this division for a long time last season. Had to play a playing game against the Brewers. Lost, so the Brewers won the division. And then they had to play a playing game that is the wild card game, and they lost to the Colorado Rockies. So, in the driver's seat for most of the year, a 116 run differential, best in the National League, right behind the Dodgers, so second best technically. And they still didn't get a series in the Major League Baseball playoffs. So it's a really good division, I think, again this year. I mentioned it in the National League East podcast, that the two best divisions for sure for me are the East and the Central. And I'll reiterate it here. I think the best overall division is probably this division, the National League Central, because the Marlins way down compared to the Pirates and the Reds. And then I think the most fun division to watch the race is going to be the National League East. And if you didn't hear me say the reason why on the other podcast, you will find out. So I'm going to bury the lead, actually. And I'll leave you in a little bit of suspense of that reason why as we go into my prediction for the 2019 season. First and foremost, I do have to also tease that Thursday morning before, so it should be up by 8 a.m., so you have plenty of time to listen to it, and it's actually going to be worth listening to because it's predictions for the season. So there's not going to, even though the games will start at 1 o'clock that day, it will be still relevant for the entire season because it'll be my predictions on the playoffs, give you my wild card teams that I've yet to do, even though you know the division winners after this podcast. You'll know all 6 of my division winners. I'll have to give you my wild card teams too, playoff predictions, as well as award predictions. The awards we'll do MVP, Cy Young, and Rookie of the Year. We won't go past that. We won't go Manager or Comeback Player of the Year award. We'll go with the main 3, the big 3. And, of course, I'll give you Mike James as well, as he's still recovering. We wish him the best. But, yeah, he'll send me in his, and I'll review his on the show as I go through mine. That's Thursday morning, the final podcast of the preview of the preseason for the MLB. And this is the penultimate MLB preseason. And let's get to it. The first place team that I have coming in for the National League Central, and you may have guessed it based on how I kind of squeaked it in there when I said talking about the Cubs division. And that's why I have the Cubs. Look, the Cubs have gotten kind of happy. You kind of feel about this Cubs team of, wait a second, is this Cubs team as good as it was? Like, look what happened to them down the stretch last season. They were ahead of, and I mentioned it already, but obviously they have really looked good last season. They were ahead for a long time, but the collapse, I think, is underrated by the fact that they did make the playoffs. But it's kind of like a kind of a collapse, like, right? Wasn't that a big collapse that happened for the Chicago Cubs to not even make it to a series, to lose the play-in game or the division, the winner-take-all division, National League Central game, and then to lose the wild card game 2 to the Colorado Rockies? Like, it was not a good look, and it was not a good feel if you were a Cubs fan for sure. And we're going into the season, the momentum definitely doesn't change because when you look at the team overall, what have they added? What have they changed? And there really isn't much that they've changed at all. They haven't really added anything. If anything, the number one thing that you could look at this team and say this is what they added is Cole Hamels, but he was on the team late in last season because he was traded for midseason. So when it comes down to it, this is almost the same exact team. Maybe Brandon Kintzler is something new, but it's the same exact Cubs team from last season. It really is. You look at the outfield, Kyle Schwarber, Albert Almaro Jr., and Jason Hayward. Ian Happ is starting the season in the minors. Was not happy about that, but that's a guy who needed to take a step forward last season and did not. And while I still have confidence that he can do it at some point this year if he gets the opportunity, the fact of the matter is their outfield is not great, because if you look at the best hitter in this outfield, probably Kyle Schwarber, maybe not for average, more for power, obviously, but he's the worst fielder. And then Almora and Hayward, who have really good defensive skills, need to step it up a bit on the offensive side. Hayward will never get to the places where people were expecting him to be, but he needs to be better than he has been. While Albert Almora Jr. is kind of more of that 8-9 guy, but he has yet to come into his own when it comes to overall offensive ability. Last season, really not great. 286 with 5 home runs. The average is okay, but I'd like him to walk more if you're not going to hit for power. So there's still some offensive issues in the outfield, but you can't get over the issues that Chris Bryant had to bring in because he was injured for a lot of last season, and he was not himself. Now, I 100% expect him to bounce back. I expect Javier Baez to be just as good as he has been in the past at shortstop. And by the past, I mean last season he was incredible, but he's also a guy that doesn't walk a lot. So you're going to need guys like Kyle Schwarber, Ben Zobrist, who get the everyday second base job. You need those guys to be the on-base dudes, and then Javier Baez, who's still a free swinger. The thing about Javier Baez, I believe he swung at the most pitches out of the zone last season. I believe I saw a stat that was like that, and yet he still was one of the best hitters in the National League last year, and its overall average still ended up being 290 with 34 home runs and 111 RBIs. So this is a guy that he finally got to the position that a lot of people thought he was going to get to. You know, when he came up, and for the first couple of seasons, you're like, this is a good hitter, but can he, he was going to hit for power for sure. He's a good hitter, he can hit for power, but he's too much of a free swinger to hit for average. Well, 290 is a pretty darn good average in today's MLB. And if he's coming into his own, you need Rizzo to be better, you need Chris Bryant to be better. Not that they were awful last year. I mean, obviously, I've already mentioned that Bryant was out for a long time, but even when he did play, he wasn't fantastic. Rizzo himself, only 25 home runs. I know I said only, but this is the guy that you would expect to hit more in the 30s, which he had done with the previous 4 seasons. So you want Rizzo to be a little bit better. He still drove in over 100 runs. He still hit 283. But you kind of want that Rizzo who's going to get you in the 30s, who's going to hit it was rare. You know what? It was enough to be more around his average, Anthony Rizzo. But you kind of expect him to hit more home runs. I guess what's 7 home runs? It's still something. It's still something. And I think that while Rizzo is maybe there's not as much blame on Rizzo for sure, but you want him to be just a tad bit better. And then the offense, Wilson Contreras behind the plate should be one of the best hitting catchers in baseball. But last year was a little disappointing in that category in some capacity. I mean, he only hit 249 and only got 10 home runs. So you need him to get a little bit better too. So there's a lot of buts or a lot of so's here, and I think that ultimately the offense will be better this season. And you're talking about a team that lost the division by 1 game. Go to the rotation. John Lester, the analytics are down on him, but I still think that he can have a good season enough. My analytics being down, I feel like that hurts him more in fantasy, but I think in real life, he's still a really good pitcher, and that's what I'm banking on Lester at the top of that rotation to still be the guy who kind of looks at the analytics and says, I don't need to look good on the analytics side. I can still go out and play well. And even if the analytics don't favor you, and I say this the same thing with Albert Pujols, they're still good enough players to be rostered. And I know people are like, well, Pujols is a train. I've heard Keith Law, and I'm going to call him out. I've heard Keith Law saying, I don't know if he said train wreck, but it's to that, I'm paraphrasing with the train wreck, but that they need to get Pujols out of that team. Well, look, Pujols is still a serviceable baseball player. He's not worth the money by any means. But if people say that Pujols is not serviceable, and if Lester, and no one's saying Lester is not serviceable, but if people are going to say that analytics make it so someone like Pujols or Lester are not worth it, it really makes me shake my head, and it really makes my head explode sometimes. But I got to say that Lester is still going to be a good enough rotation at the top of this rotation. And even Cole Hamels, I believe he got a hole-in-one and then hit a home run recently. Like, he's ready to go. He's doing great things with the bat in the irons out there. Was it a driver? I don't know, but was it a wood? I don't know. I think it must have been an iron. If he got got a hole-in-one, but who knows? I mean, he's doing well with other things. I think he's just ready to pitch. And he was really good down the stretch to get out of Texas was huge for him. And I really expect him to take a step forward this year with the Cubs. Yu Darvish, if he's healthy, I expect him to be really, really good. Jose Quintana. Think about Jose Quintana, and the same thing kind of with Yu Darvish. These guys that have gotten, had so much potential and have so much talent, and everybody knows it, and they've yet to put it together anywhere, really, for a complete season and look really good. I mean, Darvish, of course, has done it with the Rangers. Excuse me. I'm wrong on that. But obviously, he's done it before in the past. Especially Jose Quintana. He hasn't really done it yet. But everyone thinks that they can get there, including myself. And I think Darvish really comes down to the health. And if he's healthy, I expect him to be pretty good and really good for them, as a 3-starter. And then Quintana, I think he's the 5 starter. I think he needs to take a step forward, and I think he will. But I don't know if we're going to go anyone ace here. Like, who's the ace of the staff? I think the best pitcher on the staff, that's the question, what ace is. Probably might be Cole Hamels going into the season. But I think the old reliable just got an extension. I call him that. I don't know if it's going to catch on, but I call him old reliable. Kyle Hendricks. He just got an extension, and he's the pedestrian, not a flashy pitcher. He doesn't really strike out that many guys. You know, he's kind of more of a Greg Maddux type pitcher, that type of style, and he got an extension. So I look at him and I say, first off, how many extensions they're getting? Like, DeGrom just got an extension, so congratulations to DeGrom, and congratulations to the Mets for doing the right thing. I think that's just the way baseball's going right now, and Hendricks is much deserving as well because he's the underrated pitcher. He is the workhorse, and I call him all reliable because he is someone that they will lean on this season, and I really think that he will probably be the best overall pitcher. Maybe Hamels will be better, but I think he's most consistent. He's the guy that I look at him and say that there's no chance that he doesn't pitch well this year. Does that make sense? Like, I look at Lester, and I look at Hamels, I look at Darvish, and I even look at Quintana, and I say, you know what, they could probably be better than Hendricks, but that's going to make sure everything goes. That's going to be if everything goes right. Even if everything doesn't go right for Hendricks, I still think he's a good pitcher, if that makes any sense. Moving to the bullpen, there's problems here because you have Brandon Morrow and Pedro Strop both injured, but you have good backup plans like Carl Edwards Jr. and Steve Cishek, Brandon Kinsler. So they have a good depth in the bullpen. Problem is, some of the big names are kind of injured. And I have all the faith in the world. I'm not sure what else they might have to trade, but I have all the faith in the world for Theo Epstein when push comes to shove before the deadline to improve that bullpen if he needs to. Tyler Chatwood will move to the bullpen, so I think they have the arms and the ability to do it. Brian Dunsing as well, but overall they're going to need Morrow or Strop to be healthy, if not both, and maybe an acquisition somewhere. We'll see. That's why I have the Cubs in first place, but this will be a really tough division for sure. Second place, I have a hard time not putting the Brewers in second place, and I fought myself against doing it, and I won that one because I'm putting the Cardinals second. Look, I still think the Brewers are going to be good, and I'll get to them in a second. I think all these teams are over 500. You look at last season's standings in the end. This is with one extra game, 9 for the Cubs and the Brewers, 96 and 67 for the Brewers, 95 and 68 for the Cubs, and the Cardinals were 88 and 74 last season. Look at what they were. They were 88 and 74, and they finished 7.5 games out of the Brewers because of the extra half game. So 7 games, really, out of both the Cubs and the Brewers. And they got better. Did they not? I mean, you bring in Paul Goldschmidt. Is that not 7 wins? Maybe it's not 7. I don't know if his WAR is 7. Probably not. But you bring in Paul Goldschmidt. Your outfield is still ready to go with backups. You have 5 serviceable enough outfielders. Of course, Jose Martinez probably is better with the bat. No, not probably. Is better with the bat than he is the glove. So who knows if that's what they want to do with the outfit out there. But you still have Carpenter at third base. The middle infield, Paul DeJong on a fall season could be pretty good. Colton Wong, he kind of never got to the point where maybe people thought he could get, but he's still a good enough second baseman. And then the real outfielders, the Marcell Ozuna, Harrison Bader, and Dexter Fowler across the board. Ozuna can only get better, in my opinion. He was okay last year, but I think he'll actually be better this season. Harrison Bader looked really, really talented last year. Great defensive center field. And Dexter Fowler's looked really good in spring training. If he can get back to the days that he was before in Chicago, I really think that we're looking at a guy who can really get things done out there. And if not, you have Tyler O'Neill doing really good things. I think that he can have huge power numbers himself. So it's just a really overall depth. And then you add Paul Goldschmidt to this lineup, and they still finished only 7 games out. I like this team to make a step forward and be even better. And look at the rotation. And I know that they have some troubles. I know Carlos Martinez is going to be out for a little bit, but I like the rotation. Michael Mikolas, but the ace of the staff is Jack Flaherty, Dakota Hudson, Michael Wacha, and Adam Wainwright. And Wainwright's older, but he looked good at the end of last season, and he's actually looked really good in spring training. So he's not going to be the same Wainwright that he was when they were in their heyday, but it's still a great enough pitching staff, in my opinion. Mikolas is going to regress a little bit, also in my opinion. But Flaherty is going to be a Cy Young caliber pitcher this year. So stay tuned for my picks. We'll see if he makes it. And then, of course, we're always pitching to Yadier Molina, and the backup being Matt Wieters. If Molina goes down, I dig that. So overall, and I already mentioned Jose Martinez backs up first, backs up in the right field and left field. So they have good enough backups. Even the backup infielders aren't bad. And I'm actually a big fan of them. You have Drew Robertson. And then you also have Yaro Munoz, who played pretty well in the backup role last season. Robinson, Maybe he hasn't proven himself in the majors, but I like Munoz and his opportunity last season. He was actually pretty good for them. So they have depth. That's what's important here. And I think their offense could actually be better than the Cubs. And that's saying something. And the rotation, like I said, it's good, but it's not great. But I think in both the Cubs and the Cardinals sections, they have pitchers that can make it great and pitchers that can make it just good. And in both circumstances, they're both going to be good rotations. It's which one's going to be greater that wins this division. And then the bullpen. I love the bullpen. Yeah, John Hicks is their closer, the guy that can throw so hard, 101 miles an hour. Well, they could be. I mean, maybe they won't have a set closer, but. And then Andrew Miller, they bring him, the lefty, the big lefty. He hasn't looked great in spring training, but he's still got that pedigree for me. I'll take him any day of the week. And then you put the rookie phenom, I guess he still is a rookie. I think he might still be a rookie. I think he qualified for prospect status, so that makes him a rookie. Alex Reyes is going to be in that bullpen to start the season. He might be in the rotation at some point, but him in the bullpen, and if Carlos Martinez comes back and pitches in the bullpen, it's going to be a great bullpen. I don't know what they're going to do per se, but whether either of them or both of them stay, and I'm talking about Reyes and Carlos Martinez, that's going to be a good bullpen when push comes to shove. So already a good bullpen, and if both of those are in the bullpen too, and that rotation kind of holds up, that's going to be why I have his team in second place. When I look over, though, at the depth chart for the third place Milwaukee Brewers, this is where I leave the Milwaukee Brewers right now. In third place because their bullpen is in shambles. And look, Corey Knebel's out. They might sign Craig Kimbrell. I don't know. Josh Hader's really, really good. And he'll be the closer, and he'll be a matchup guy for Craig Counsell. And Jeremy Jeffress will be back on this roster by the end of April in best case scenario, and also in my opinion. So look for that to happen for sure. And that's still a good 1-2 back to the bullpen. But the fact of the matter is, if you don't have Knebel, you know where to go after that. You have Alex Claudio. He's okay. Matt Albers, he's pretty good. Junior Guerra. So it's still a decent bullpen. But you lose one of the big three at the back end, it hurts you a little bit. And they leaned on that all out last season. And not that Knebel was great last year, but I just still got this feeling that they're going to struggle at certain positions. The offense is really good, right? Ryan Braun, Lorenzo Cain, and Christian Yelich, and reigning MVP Christian Yelich in right field. That's a really good outfield. Braun continues to do good enough things, but the best two, obviously Cain and Yelich, are really good in center and right field. First, number one and number two hitters, I believe. Across the infield, you have Travis Shaw third base. You have Orlando Arcia at shortstop. Mike Moustakas playing second base, and Jesus Aguilar playing first base. Aguilar, I think, will continue to play really, really well at first base. The power number is going to be there. He's going to hit for 30 home runs and I think drive in a ton of runs. I still think that's going to happen. I think Travis Shaw is a really good third baseman, and Mike Moustakas' bat is undeniable. Problem is, they say they're going to really hide the second base defense with shifts, but I'm still concerned about the defense for some of these pitchers who are still young and aren't proven per se. I actually kind of think that the rotation is underrated, but Hernan Perez is going to have to play a little bit more than maybe we think off the bat because he's got a better glove and he can still hit. They signed Yasmani Grandal, the money that people didn't think they were going to spend, but they did on Yasmani, and that's a really good signing too. So the offense, I think, is going to be there, no doubt about it. I don't think that they're necessarily better than the Cubs or Cardinals. I think that they're kind of even on even playing field with the lineup. But I think rotation-wise, you go Juicy Chassin was really good last year, underratingly really good. And then you have Freddie Peralta, the rookie, Brandon Woodruff, Corbin Burns, who's have his first stint in the rotation, and then Zach Davies. Peralta, Woodruff, and Burns are all not proven, and I think that's why these can all be really good pitchers. Peralta has the strikeout totals, but can he really get there in the ERA? And that's where I'm a little concerned with him. Woodruff has looked the best out of these three, and the same thing with Corbin Burns. He's looked really, really good, but same thing with Peralta with Burns. I just don't know if he's going to be able to keep the ERA down enough, and that's why the rotation is enough to scare me. Jimmy Nelson's going to have an opportunity to come back. He was really good in 2017, but he got shut down recently. They expect him to be fine and can move forward to where he had been, not have to go a total reset, but when AAA starts, he'll probably start there. There's just so much questions at the rotation. I know they have Chase Anderson that they can enter back into the rotation if they need to. Junior Guerra probably as well, but I just have too much concern with the rotation. And I know they did it with an okay and not really great rotation last season. But because the rotations are better and the bullpens are both good enough, I think, for the Cardinals and Cubs, I have the Brewers coming in third place. But back to what I was teasing a little earlier and what I said in the National League East, I think that there are four teams that can come between first and fourth in the National League East. I think that but in this division, it's a little different. I only see three, and it's the Cubs, Cardinals, and Brewers, and I think that one of these three teams will win the division, and then one of the three teams will come in second, and one of the teams will come in third. Basically, what I'm saying is the top three from this division can finish anywhere from between 1, 2, and 3, and it's the top four for the National League East. So overall, the race will be more fun to watch in the East because more teams can win, and this will be a fun race to watch. No doubt about it. For sure in the National League Central, but I still think that the Reds and Pirates have no chance, while just the Marlins that have no chance to win the division in the East. If that makes no sense to you, I'll try to clarify it if you want to tweet at me at EricH1045 on Twitter. But think that's my overall reason why the East will be better to watch. But overall, the talent, though, and I'll give you a second, is a little bit better in the Central. And here's the reason: the Reds could surprise me. The Reds could shut me up. The Reds could come in third place. The Reds could come in second place, and maybe they'd shut me up and come in first place. And that's why this is a better division, because even though the Reds are going up against a Mets team for fourth, Pirates are better than the Marlins, no doubt about it. And this Reds team is actually really, really good. I have a lot of high expectations for this Reds team. Let's start off with the obvious. They traded for Yasiel Puig, Matt Kemp, Sonny Gray, Alex Wood, and that's basically it. That's basically the extent right now of what they traded for that I'm going to talk about. Jesse Winker, though, is the starting left fielder and maybe the leadoff hitter. Tremendous on-base guy. You add him as an on-base guy with Joey Votto at first base. Like, that's going to be a great on-base, and that's what's so important. And the power has been there, especially when you play at the Reds ballpark. I mean, that's going to happen no matter, the power is going to come to people who play there. Scott Schebler also has power. He's going to play center field. And then you also have Nick Senzel, who can play center field. The really good prospect who has Alex Bregman-type potential, who is really a third baseman or a second baseman, but because of Jose Peraza and Eugenio Suarez, will be playing center field if and when he gets the opportunity. And the problem is Senzel is a little bit injured right now, so he might not be ready. And then Scooter Gennett, who was really, really good for them last season, also injured now, 8 to 12 weeks. And they're going to have Jose Iglesias play shortstop while Peraza moves over to second base. And Gennett was the real reason why Senzel wasn't going to play, because he would have played second and Peraza would move for short. So overall, I think Gennett will come back at some point. I think Iglesias is serviceable enough. The defense will certainly be good at shortstop. But Puig, Puig's going to have a monster year, right? Playing in Cincinnati, they're going to let him let his hair down a little bit, so to speak, and just be a really good player and be able to do whatever I don't want to say whatever he wants, but just he seems to be happy to be out of LA. It seems weird, but he just does. He was happy there a little bit, but it doesn't seem like the fun Puig seems to be out. I haven't seen the ticked off Puig or the really Puig's doing this type of Puig. You know what I'm saying? It seems to be the fun Puig all around. And that's why I really, really like where this Reds team is going, because if Puig is really good and Votto continues to be good and Peraza and Eugenio Suarez are still very underrated, with Jesse Winker kind of being underrated right now, and Scott Schebler being a good enough power guy in center field with Nick Senzel, the big prospect coming up. This is a good offense. Tucker Barnhart, serviceable catcher. So this is a really good offense. And then you factor in not only getting Sonny Gray and getting Tanner Roark. I forgot to mention him, that they traded for him, I believe. So you add Sonny Gray, Tanner Roark to Luis Castillo and Anthony DeScalafani. And when I look at it overall, I think it's an okay rotation, honestly. I really do. When it comes, push comes to shove, you add Tyler Mahle to the back end, along with Alex Wood. You add him as well with Gray and Roark. And I do expect a bounce-back season for Gray. Roark is actually pretty underrated when it push comes to shove. He's actually looked pretty good in the Reds uniform so far in spring training. And then Alex Wood, even though he's kind of injured a little bit right now, right? I believe. If he comes back and can do things, and Tyler Mahle is a good enough fill-in. So the rotation is actually something to write home about. And that's something that can really put things together. Like Luis Castillo can become an ace consistently, because he was really, really good in September. If that can become more consistent, that's just a really good team. And then overall, the backups in terms of Matt Kemp being a backup in the outfield, Derek Dietrich being a backup in the infield at first and at the corners. And then, when Gennett comes back, Iglesias is a pretty good backup himself. There's just a lot to like. And then Senzel can back up second base and third base. Think about that. Senzel can play second, and you can move Peraza back to short. So there's just so much depth there. And then you add the bullpen, and manager Dave Bell wants to do more things with matchups with Rafael Iglesias. And while that isn't a good thing for people who want to own Iglesias in fantasies for having a consistent closer, I think it's really good for what you see from ironically, maybe not ironically, because you want to keep up with teams in your division, but what the Brewers do. And that's how the Brewers usually do things and that's what you want to do if you are the the manager, you want to be able to match things up, and it seems to be the new age thing. And if you have Raisel Iglesias as your righty, Amir Garrett as your lefty, and then you also have Jared Hughes and David Hernandez and Michael Lorenzen and more matchup-related things, I think you have a pretty good chance to be a pretty darn good bullpen. Wandy Peralta also on that bullpen. So there's some good things. Matt Whistler and Robert Stevenson are good long relief options. So there's a lot to like about the Red teams. That's why I think that they're a team that could surprise people and become, and even to some extent, I said that they don't have a chance to win the division by saying that the only 3 teams I can see coming in first, second, or third are the aforementioned Cubs, Cardinals, and Brewers. So while I'm hyping them up and saying I think they're going to be actually a really good team this year, and it will definitely improve on their 67 wins from last season, 100%, they could be around the 500 mark that the Pittsburgh Pirates were at. They were 3 games over 500. And so when it comes down to it, I think that when you look at it, I think that the Reds can be really, really good, but I don't think anyone, including me, who are hyping them up, have this team as a division winner. And while I am very high on them, still think they're a 4th place team, and I've put the Mets as a chance to beat the East, and I haven't given that to the Reds, and that I guess means something, but I think they'll be over 500 this year. The Pirates are my 5th place team, and while they're the reason why this is the best division, I don't think that they will go over 500. They could flirt with it, but I don't think you're getting 5 teams over 500 in a division. I could be wrong here, but I don't remember the last time 5 teams were over 500 in a division in a single season. And that's why I had the Pirates probably finishing under 500, maybe 5 or 6 games under. Could be even more. Who knows what happens with this team if they decide to sell things. And the main reason is they don't have great things all around. They have good things. There's the obvious. Starling Marte is great in center field. Gregory Polanco is great in right field. Corey Dickerson has his moments in left. Josh Bell is a good first baseman, good young first baseman that continues to impress, but has yet to break out, in my opinion, to fully break out. He's broken out. He hasn't fully broken out. And then the rest of the infield are wild cards. Adam Frazier actually can be a good second baseman. He's had stretches, but he just doesn't move the needle. Eric Gonzalez is an okay shortstop, good defensively. Just don't know if he's going to be able to be good enough offensively to be that big of a factor. Does he need to be with the rest of the offense? I do think so. Francisco Cervelli, a catcher position. He's good. He's serviceable. Might be a top 10 catcher in the major leagues. That's not saying much, though. And he might be more around 11 or 12. So there's just not enough offensively to get it done. Marte is too injury prone. So if you lose him for a little bit, is Lonnie Chisenhall good enough to get the job done offensively if that's who you're playing? Maybe you're playing Jose Ozuna, or maybe you're playing Pablo Reyes, who has really yet to prove himself in the major leagues. Hit 293 last year, but come on, you have to have a bigger sample size. The good news is I love the third baseman, Jung Ho Gong, who had multiple seasons with, I believe, 17 home runs one year, 21 the next. But he's really good. He won the third base job. Hit 7 spring home runs. So I love what Jung Ho Gong can be for this team, for sure. But is that going to be enough to make this team a perennial offense? No, probably not. And Carlos Moran's a good backup at third, a good backup at first base. But I just don't see this enough offensively for this team to get to the next level, to get to the level of the people, including the teams ahead of them, including the Reds, quite frankly. Rotation probably is a little bit higher than the Reds. I think that you look at Jameson Taillon, Chris Archer, Trevor Williams, and Joe Musgrove. I think that those are really 4 solid pitchers. Williams is going to need to be a good soft pitcher who pitches for soft contact yet again. Joe Musgrove is going to have to take a step forward, but I think that a lot of people, including myself, believe that can happen. Those might be a really good top 4. I think their top 4 is probably better than the Reds overall. Jordan Lyles, though, don't love him at the 5. I think maybe as a whole rotation, it might be just a little bit better than the Reds, and probably a little bit better than the Brewers, but maybe not better than the Cubs or Cardinals. And they're going to need Taillon to be a complete ace. They're going to need Archer to take another step forward, or to get back on track to what he had been in the past, and maybe be more consistent than he's ever been in his career if they really want to be a team that competes for this division or in even a wild card. So I think that ultimately, I look at the Pirates, I say there's shortcomings on the lineup. There's shortcomings in the rotation, and overall, they're like Kyle Crick, Keone Kela, and the closer Felipe Velasquez at the back end, but there might even be some shortcomings in that bullpen. I don't know what else you're getting there. to the end of the bullpen, Steven Brault, Francisco Liriano, Nick Kingham. I believe Melky Cabrera also made the outfield, so that's actually a little bit better than Lonnie Chisenhall, I guess. Maybe he can fill in center field for Marte. Trust him a little bit better than Pablo Reyes. So there's that. Fair enough. But Tyler Lyons out of the bullpen. There's a lot of good names here that I've liked in the past, but can they be the misfit of toys and surprise me? I don't think so. I think that they're clearly the worst team in this division. I think they're going to finish under 500, but they're good enough to they're a lot better than the Marlins, and that's not saying a lot, but it's also saying a lot, or saying that look, this is a really good division. And if they were not in the Central and they were in the West, they might be even with the Padres, something like that. It's not crazy to think that. So it's a product of circumstance, it's a product of region, and it's unfortunate, but to me, this team's not going to get there. Music has stopped, which means we probably should end this podcast. I really appreciate you guys listening to all my podcasts for the division previews. I encourage you to watch a lot of baseball this season. If you haven't played fantasy baseball, it's not too late. Go and do that. If you have any questions about it, tweet at me at EricH1045. I'll try to be with you throughout the season to do fantasy baseball podcasts. And obviously, I'll be with whoever, Bryce Linsky, Taylor Lattimore, and hopefully Mike James is quicker than possible to talk to you about the Major League Baseball season throughout it, of course. And of course, you can join me Sundays at 11 a.m. for Sittin Sportside Sunday on 104.5 The Team. As we'll do every single week, we'll talk about the week in Yankees baseball and all that great things. This has been the Sittin Sportside podcast brought to you by DeAndre's Pizza. Check out the next podcast, the last MLB preseason podcast, Thursday morning. It'll drop around 8 or 9 a.m., where I'll give you all my playoff predictions, award predictions, and also give you Mike James' predictions as well. He'll send those in to me, and I'll relay them to you guys as well. So once again, thank you for listening to this edition of the Sittin Sportside podcast, and I really, really do appreciate you sitting Sportside on 1045theteam.com.